Okay, welcome everyone. As we are dedicated by Shelley Zeitlin for the Refuah Shalema of Moshe Meir ben Esther Fradel, and for Shimon ben Sarah Miriam. We are also dedicated by the Fisher, by A.B. Spry and family, Refuah Shalema for Taiba Reza Bas Hinda, and for great zivugim for their daughter and grandchildren. We also are sponsored anonymously for the physical, emotional, and spiritual protection for Yeshua Menachem Mendel, Ben Bela, Shendel, Rivka. When I came upstairs last night, it was way after 12:30 when I finished uploading and everything. I had this big smile on my face that I said to my wife, I was mispelled that we should have siyata d'shmaya in learning the daf, and I really felt we had siyata d'shmaya. So thank you everybody for that. We are holding by Masnisa Nami Deka, which is 6 lines from the bottom of Lamed Zayin Amid Beis. 6 lines from the bottom of Lamed Zayin Amid Beis.
Rabbi Weiss,
yeah.
If I can ask also to add in for Shlema for Chasida Frumit Bas Nechama Mendel.
Chasida Frumit Bas Nechama Mendel should have a Refuah Shlema b'Seich Shar Chayil Yisrael. We learned that Rabbi Yochanan holds that if a person makes a shvuah about shibud karkais, so there's no carbon. There's no carbon on karka. Amra Papa Mishmei Derava Masnisa Nami Deka. We could also bring a proof from our Mishnah, the Ketani Ganafti Eshairi. I say, Shelley, you stole my axe. And he says, I didn't steal. Mashbiachani, I put you to an oath. Because over there, although the kefil would be a knas, but the principle is monetary. So, but it only says the case of ganafta es shairi. Bilu ganafta es avdi loy katani. That if I said that he stole my eved, because there wouldn't be a carbon, because since you can't be mashpia on karka, you can't also be mashpia on avodim with chavuk kishel karkais. My timer, la mishim the eved is kishel karkais, then an eved is juxtaposed to karka. The ain mavian carbon al kfir shibit karkais, and like Rabbi Yochanan said, you don't bring a carbon about a denial of a lien of real estate. Not so quick. Amos Sefer, Zaklal, this is the general principle, anyone that pays al piatzmai when he admits chayiv. V'she'ena mishalom al piatzmai poter. Now zaklal la'asuyei mai. What does zaklal come to include? Lav la'asuyei ganafta es avdi, that you stole my eved. So you see that although eved is hukish l'karkais, it's still, since it's monetary, there's still going to be a shvuah. And therefore, since the code could come to include that, we cannot infer that this is a proof to Rabbi Yochanan. And now we start the top of Daf Lamed Ches Amud Aleph. Shavuos HaPikadon Keitzad, an oath of deposit. What's the example? Where I tell Shelley, Tainli Pikadon Sheyeshli Biyadcha, give me the case that I gave you, and he swears that I didn't have anything. Tan Rabbanan, Klal Einoi Chayev Ela Achas. If I say that in the case where I say that you have a pikadon and an aveda, and theft, and a loan. And he says, I don't have anything. So klal, if he gathers it up all in one inclusive statement, ein chayiv ela achas. Prat, if he itemizes each one, chayiv al kol achas v'achas divrei meir. Rabbi Yehuda says, now in this case, we're talking about a case where not loan and pikadon. It's talking about where I said that Shelley owes me a pikadon, and Marshall says Shelley owes him a pikadon, and Shalom says Shelley owes him a pikadon, and Shimon says Shelley owes him a pikadon. If Shelley says I have nothing of yours, then he's only chayiv. I have nothing of any of yours. He's only chayiv one. If he itemizes, I don't have from Rabbi Weiss, I don't have from Yitzi, I don't have from Shimon, then he's chayiv on each one, divrei meir. Rabbi Yehuda says, Shvua loy lach, v'loy lach, v'loy lach. He says a vav, a shvua, not you, and not you, and not you. Chayiv al kol achas v'achas. Because since he says the end, he's adding another shvua for each one. Rebbe Eliezer says, loy lach v'loy lach v'loy lach shvua. If he sandwiches, he mentioned shvua in the beginning and shvua at the end, so then it's a shvua for each one. Chayiv al kol achas v'achas. Reb Shimon says, ad sheyomer shvua l'kol achas v'achas. It's only if he says the word shvua by each one. That's the only time he would be chayiv a separate carbon for each statement. So we just had a lot of different opinions over here. Amar, now the Gemara gets really technical. Amar Reb Yehuda Amar Shmuel, klolo yishel Reb Meir. Reb Meir says that if it's a prat, where he says, prat, where he itemizes each one, chayiv al kol achas v'achas. But Reb Meir doesn't specify what's his klal and what's his prat. So the Gemara now suggests, this is Amar Reb Yehuda Amar Shmuel, klolo yishel Reb Meir. The klal of Reb Meir is prata yishel Reb Yehuda. Reb Meir holds that when you say shvua loy lach v'loy lach v'loy lach, the extra vav attaches it to the first shvua, and therefore it's only one shvua. So when Reb Meir says it's a klal, ein chayiv ela achas, he holds that when you say v'loy lach, v'loy lach, v'loy lach, it's all only one shvua. While klolo yishel Reb Yehuda, the klal of Reb Yehuda, where you say loy lach, loy lach, loy lach, without saying the vav, that's prata yishel Reb Meir. Reb Meir holds that's a prat. He holds that when you say shvua loy lach, loy lach, loy lach, each one is separated. It's disjointed. So each one is a separate shvua. Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with Shmuel's interpretation. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Hakol moedim b'v'loy lach. Everybody agrees that when there's the vav, that specifies is an extra shvua for each one. Hakol moedim b'v'loy lach shu prat. Loy nechlaku ela b'loy lach. They only argue where you say loy lach, loy lach, loy lach without the vav. Sh'Reb Meir Omer prat. Reb Meir says that's also, unless you say shvua loy lachem, where you say loy lach, and loy lach, that's also separate shvuas. Reb Yehuda Omer, without the vav, it's a klal. Ve'zo klal lo yishel Reb Meir. As I explained, what's the klal of Reb Meir? Shvua she'ein lachem biyodi. That I don't have from any of you. So the Gemara says, b'may kamifligi. What exactly are they arguing over here? Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan. Shmuel daik mebraisa. Shmuel makes a deduction from the Brisa. Rabbi Yochanan daik mamasnisa, and Rabbi Yochanan is daik from the Mishnah. So first we're going to deal with Shmuel. Shmuel daik mibraisa. B'tika'amar Rabbi Yehuda v'loy lach pratave. Since Rabbi Yehuda says where it says v'loy lach, it's a prat. Shmuel infers that he heard that Rameir say that that's a klal. Michlal de shamei l'Rameir da'ama klal ave. That where it says v'loy lach, it all connects it to a lone shvua, and that's a klal. The Amalei Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda says no, prata ave. That's the way Shmuel learns. Rabbi Yochanan says no. Travayel Rameir prata ave. Both loylach, and also loylach, viloylach are separate shvuas according to Rameir. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda tells Rameir biviloylach vaydinolach, where there's a vav, that indicates separate shvuas. I agree with you. But loylach, but if he just says shvuah loylach, polignalach. Says the Gemara, Ushmuel, Ada Odele Oduye. Why does Rabbi Yehuda say the case where he agrees with Rameir? He should say the case where he argues on Rameir. That's the what Shmuel doesn't like with Rabbi Yochanan's pshat. Now, Rabbi Yochanan, dayik mimasnisan. Rabbi Yochanan makes a diak from the Mishnah. Midika'amar Rameir shvua she'ein lochem biyadi klal ave. Since Rameir says that it's only where Shelley bunches them all up and says shvua she'ein lochem biyadi is a klal, that implies that michlal de v'loy lach prata have. It must be that Rameir holds that both cases, according to Rameir, are prat. Both loylach and loylach viloylach. Because if loylach is a klal, then why do you say the case of shvua she'ein lachem biyadi is a klal? It should have said the bigger chiddush. Because, as I said, midikama Rameir shvua she'ein lachem biyadi is a klala, is one shvua. Michlal de v'loylach prata have. Either way, loylach or loylach viloylach is a prat. The isok dait of v'loylach klala have, that where it is above. According to Rameir, it's a klal, because it's all attaches it to the first shvua. Ad mishvalach shvua she'ein lachem biyadi, when it says that a case of a klal is where he just says, I swear that I don't have any of yours, it should say a bigger chiddush. Nashmin and shvua loylach v'loylach and kol shein shvua she'ein lachem biyadi. Shmuel says, kol ha'omer v'loylach, it's the opinion of Rameir, that where you say the connecting vav, it's ka'omer shvua she'ein lachem biyadi dami. It's as if he says a shvua that I don't have any of yours, because the connecting vav means any of yours. Okay. Tanan, and I should welcome everybody in over here, as we welcome in Eddie Chazan, Marshall Castle, Saba, Shalom Fogel, Shimon Klein, Mel Zachter, Menachem Umansky, Ben Zion, and Bruce, a man of your word. Dr. Guy, Yaakov Warman, Michal, Yitzi Muller, Dov Solkowitz, Yitzi Fuchs, I think that's Mo Kushner, or Menachem Umansky. Chaim Kramer, Shelley Zeitlin, Danny Vogel, Stephen Holtzman, Moshe Lehman, Ilya Shutman, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Avram Rezepkowitz, Abe Arbach. Here in Shul, we have the pleasure of having Gedalia Engel and Michal Avram Chavin, Ruben Shanit, David Helfgott on Kalaloshin. Now, talk about a technical Gemara. Oh my goodness. Tanan, loy lecha, v'loy lecha, v'loy lecha. In such a case, where there's a connecting vav by each one, he brings an ashim for each one. Now, since a stam mishnah is like Reb Meir, that would be that Reb Meir holds where he says v'loy lecha, v'loy lecha, v'loy lecha. He's chayiv an ashim for each one, which is a kasha on Shmuel. Says the Gemara, Tanei loy lecha, and not with the connecting vav, and therefore that would work even according to Shmuel. Tashma, Tainli pikoden usesumes yod v'gazel v'aveda. Shelley, give me the deposit, the loan, the theft, and the lost article. And he swears that ein noch biyadi pikadin usesumes yod v'gazel v'aveda. So you see, even though where there's a connecting vav, it's still considered separate shvuos, because even though there's a connecting vav, but according to Shmuel, according to Rameh, where there's a connecting vav, it's a klal. So again, the Gemara says, take out the vav. Tnei tsumes yod gazel aveda. Tajma, the same idea. Tein li chitin usayrin v'kusman. Give me wheat and barley and spelt. If he says shvua, I don't have wheat and barley and spelt, he's chayiv a separate one for each one. So you see that even though there's connecting vavs, according to Reb Meir, it's not a klal. Tanei sa'ayrin kusman. Read it, barley spelt and not barley and spelt. Says the Gemara, v'hai tana kol hachi shabish tani va'azel. Did they make so many mistakes? And it's really without a vav, and it keeps on saying it with a vav? Says, well, you're right. The author of this Mishnah is not Reb Meir. The author of this Mishnah is Rebbe. Elohamani Rebbe he. Dama lo yishna kazayis kazayis. It makes no difference if he says an olive, lo yishna kazayis kazayis. Either one, prata have, it's a separate shvua for each one. So he holds there's no difference if there's a vav or there's no vav. Says the Gemara, Tajmamidi day. We're going to attack Shmuel another time. Tajmamidi day. Let's look at Reb Meir's words. Reb Meir afilu chita usa'ira b'kusemes. Even wheat and barley and spelt. Chayv al kalachas v'achas. So you see where he said connecting vavs, it's considered three separate shvuos, and it's not a klal. So again, the Gemara answers, Tani chita sa'ira kusemes. Teach wheat, barley, and spelt, not with the connecting vav. Says the Gemara, then my afilu. What does it mean even in such a case? Even where it says it in the Lashon Yochid. Amar Rav Acha b'rei Rav Ika afilu chita. Even if he just says one wheat, which would apply just a lone wheat kernel, which would not be a shavapruta. But afilu chita bichlal chitin. When he says wheat, he means a group of wheat. Usa'ira bichlal sa'ir. When he says barley in the singular, it means a group of barley. V'kusemes bichlal kusman. And one spelt is a unit of spelt. Now we start a new subject. I say to Shelley, Tainli pikadin sumis yad gazel v'aveda sheyeshli biyadcha. Give me the deposit, the loan, the theft, and the lost article that I have in your hand. Right? So, Tainli, the Mishnah says, Tainli chitin usa'ayrim. Give me the wheat and the barley and the spelt. Amar Rabbi Yochanan says that in that case, where I say, give me the wheat and the barley and the spelt, and he says, I have nothing of yours in my possession, he's only chayiv once, and there, even though you're not chayiv a shvua, a carbon, unless it's a shava pruta, the three ingredients, since he bunched them together, combine to make him chayiv a carbon. Amar Yochanan pruta v'kulam mitztarefes. A pruta from all three will combine. Now, here's an interesting shayla. Shelley says, I say, Shelley, give me the wheat, the barley, and the spelt. So Shelley swears, Ein lach biyadi. I don't have anything of mine, of yours in my hand. Chita se'irin kusemes. Is he chayiv for 4 shvuos or for 3 shvuos? So you'll say, what do you mean 4 shvuos? He said he doesn't have wheat, barley, and spelt. That's 3 shvuos. Yeah, but he also said a general statement. Ein lecha biyadi. I don't have anything of yours in my hand. So maybe he's chayiv also for that. So let's see it inside. He's chayiv for wheat, barley, and spelt. He's not chayiv for also saying, Ein lecha biyadi, I don't have anything of yours in my hand. For the general statement of Ein lecha biyadi, he's also chayiv a carbon. Says the Gemara, I vatani Reb Chia harikan chamesh esrei chatois. Here's a case where Shelley swears to 5 people that he doesn't have chitin, sa'irim, and kusemes. So he swears to 5 people he doesn't have wheat, barley, and spelt. So he's going to be chayiv 15 karbanos. 3 wheat, barley, and spelt for 5 people. 15 karbanos. But if he's chayiv also for the ein lecha biyadi, then he should be chayiv not 15, he should be chayiv 20. So ask the Gemara, Vatani Reb Chia, Arikan Chamesh Esrei Chatois, Vim Isa, but if you're also chayiv for the klal of ein lecha biyadi, then Esrim Avin. Then it's another shvua to 5 people, the ein lecha biyadi, so then it should be 20. Says the Gemara, Haitana de Prate Kachashiv, he only counts the pratim, the chitim, the kusemes, and the sa'irin. The klali, the general statement, like kachashiv. I vatani Rebbe Chia harikan esrim chatois. So that means that if it is 20, then that means that we're counting also the general statement. Says the Gemara, no, that's not going on chitin, kusemes, and sa'irin. That's going on. That's where he's being demanded by 5 people about a deposit alone, a theft, and a lost article. So that's 4 times 5, and that's why it's 20. Now, Rav inquires of something else. By mine Rav Amar Rav Nachman, hayu chamisha toiven oisai. If 5 people make a demand from Shelley, v'amrulai, and they say to Shelley, tein lanu pikada and sesumas yad v'gazel v'aveda sheyesh lanu b'yadecha. Give us the deposit, the loan, the theft, and the lost article. Right? So that's 5 times 4. So here, the demand was made by me, Eddie, Dove, Danny, and Steve. Right? I made a demand. Eddie, Dove, Danny, and Steve. We all asked that he has a deposit, a loan, stolen merchandise, and a lost article. So Amalek Shelley says to me, Shavuos she'ein lecha b'yadi pikadon susumas yad gazel v'aveda. I don't have by you a deposit, a loan, theft, or a lost article. And then he says, nor do I have it by Eddie, nor do I have it by Dove, nor do I have it by Danny, nor do I have it by Steve. Then he says, Mao. Do we say that Achad Mechayev? For me, he's Chayev 4, because he saw he doesn't have a loan, theft, lost article, and a deposit. And then he says, nor to Eddie, Dove, Danny, and Steve. Do we say that Achad Mechayev to Dove, Danny, Steve, and Dove, Danny, Steve, and Eddie, he's only Chayev 1 apiece? Oy Dilma, Kol Chadav Echad Mechayev. He said, like he said to me, that he doesn't have all 4. He's Chayev for all 4 for them too. So the Gemara wants to bring a proof. Tajma, the Tani Rabbi Chia, Hari kan esrim katos. There's 20 chatos. Heichi dami. Eat the parish if he said it outright. I don't own. I don't owe. I swear I don't owe. To Rabbi Weiss, to Eddie, to Dove, to Tzvi and Danny, a loan, a deposit, theft, or a lost article. So of course that's 5 times 4 is 20. Is he just teaching us how to count? Either parish Reb Chinia minyana asalash minan, elalav the loy parish. He didn't specify. He just said, Rabbi Weiss, I swear that I don't have by you a loan, a deposit, theft, and a lost article, and not by Eddie, and not by Dove, and not by Steve, and not by Danny. Vishmami no, that even though he didn't specify, pratahave, and he would be chayiv, in this case, 20 karbanos. Now, continues the Mishnah. Onasta upitosa esbiti. Shmuel tells Chatzkel, you raped and seduced my daughter. So, and Chatzkel swears he didn't do it. And then he admits. So, Amrab Chia bar Abba, Amrab Yechanan, we said that the Rabbanan hold that in such a case he's chayiv, because there's also, even though the 50 shkalim of rape and seduction is a knas, but there's also monetary payment for embarrassment in the case of rape, pain, by both of them, pagam, or devaluation. Reb Shimon says it's potter. So the Gemara says, my time in Reb Shimon. So the Gemara says, Hoyel be'ikur knasu toveya. The main thing that he's being toveya is the knas, the 50 shkol. I'm a Rava. Marshal the Reb Shimon lamad davar daima. What is this logic of Reb Shimon similar to? L'adam she'amalech l'chaveira tein lichitin sa'irim v'kusmin. Give me the wheat, barley, and spelt sheyesh li biyadcha. Amalai, so he says to him, Shvur she'ein lach biyadei chitin. I swear that I don't have wheat. V'ishtakach dechitin hu delesle. And we find that he doesn't have wheat. Hasa'ayrim v'kusman isle. But he does have barley and spelt the potter. Why? Because he only swore about wheat. And he swore the truth. He didn't have any wheat. Dechi ashtava achitin. So here also, Reb Shimon holds he's only swearing about the knas. Says well, it's not similar at all. Amalei abai mi dummy. Hasam bechitin kakafale. He only denied the wheat. Bisayim kusim like kafale. He didn't deny the wheat and the barley and the spelt. But Hacha, where he says he didn't rape the girl, or he didn't seduce the girl, he's denying also the mumminess. Give me the wheat, barley, and spelt that I have. And Shelley swears that he doesn't have anything. And we find that he doesn't have wheat, but he does have barley and spelt. The mechayev, of course, he's chayev. So here also, if he says he didn't rape, and we found that he did rape, so he does, even if he's not chayev for the knas, but he's certainly chayev for the monetary payment. Eliki also Rabin Amar Rabbi Yechanan L'divrei Rabban Shimon Knasu Teveya. The person, the claimant, is demanding the knas because he knows that's a fixed amount. So he wants what's a fixed amount. V'loi baishas pekam. The divrei chachamim af baishas pekam teveya. No, he also wants the humiliation and the devaluation, which is monetary. B'may kamifligi, Amar Papa of Shimon Sabalei Shavik Inish Midei the kids. A person does not forsake something that's a fixed amount, 50 shkalim, b'tava midei the loikits, and demand something that's in the air, humiliation, devaluation, and it's going to take time to evaluate. Rabbanan say pum fakir. The knas, he's not so excited about, because if the guy admits, he's part from the knas. He doesn't forsake something that even if the person admits, he's not potter. Even if he admits, he still has to pay the monetary payment of humiliation, of pain, in the case of rape, and devaluation, and demand the knas, where if he admits it, he would be potter. Now, there is another category of shvuos, and that's shvuos hadayanim, a shvuah imposed by the court. Right? It says shvuos Hashem tiyeh ben shneim. Now, there are different types of shvuos imposed by the court. One shvuah imposed by the court is where a person is moide b'mixas. I say to Marshall, you owe me $1,000, and he admits to 500. So where he is moide b'mixas, he has to swear. If he denies the whole thing, he doesn't have to swear. But if he admits to half, he has to swear. And by the way, just to give you a scoop, he only has to swear if he admits to half miminataina. That means I say that you owe me 1,000 apples, and he says 500. But if I say that you owe me 1,000 apples, and he says he owes me 500 frankfurters, he doesn't have to swear, because it's not miminataina. So that's one case of a court-imposed shvuah. Another case of a court-imposed shvuah is with his eid echad. Remember, we said that you're chayiv money al pi shnayim eidim yakum davar. You have to give it over if there is if there is two eidim. If there's one aid, so one aid could demand a shvuah. The third case of shvuah is the shvuas hashayimim, the oath that a custodian has to take. Like, for example, a shomer chinam has to swear that he wasn't negligent. A shomer sacher has to swear that it wasn't lost or stolen. So that's a shvuas hashayimim. We're going to first interest ourselves in moide b'mixas hatayna, where a person admits to part of the claim. Let's see it inside as we start the new Mishnah. having in mind to be Mekayim the mitzvah of B'dibar Tabam, lastly, Snachas Ruach Liyitzreinu. I lost a lot of calories tonight. 84 Tanesim. Got opinion of Ben. 84 fasts. It's a lot of calories. People don't know. They go to they go to nutritionists. You got to go to opinion on Ben. Shelley, don't I look skinnier? Now.
I can see it on your face.
Yeah. I'm talking about. Should have had a Coke tonight. Shavuos Hadayanim.
You mean a Pepsi, don't you?
Yes, Shavuos Hadayanim. Go all the way. Shavuos Hadayanim, a shvuah imposed by the court, that is a minimum. Hataina Shnei Kesef, the claim has to be 2 silver ma'ah. V'haidah b'shava pruta, and the admission has to be at least the value of a pruta. V'im ein haidah min hataina, but if the admission is not the same as the claim, I claimed apples and he admitted to Frankfurters, potter. So ketzad, if I tell Marshall, shtei kesef li biyodcha, you have 2 silver ma'ah of mine in your hand, and he says, ein loch biyodi ela pruta, I only have a pruta, potter. Now you'll say, why potter? The claim is 2 silver, and the admission is a pruta. Yeah, but it's not min hataina. I said silver, and he said copper. So that's not min hataina. Shtei kesef a pruta li biyodcha. If I say that you owe me 2 silver and a pruta, and he admits to a pruta, so he admits to min hataina because the taina was a pruta. So shtei kesef a pruta li biyodcha, and he says ein loch biyodi ela pruta chay. So now, if I say to Marshall, Mana li biyodcha, you owe me 100, and Marshall says ein loch biyodi, I don't owe you anything. That's called lahadam. Lo yedvar me'am, I don't owe you anything, potter. But if I say to him, Mana li biyodcha, you owe me 100, and he says ein li ela chamishim dinar, I only owe you 50, chayiv. Now what about this case? Mana la'aba b'yodcha. I say that $100 that I gave to your father is in your hand. And Marshall says to me, ein loch b'yodi ela nun dinner. He says, I only have 50. Potter. Now the reason why he's potter in this case, you would say, why is he potter? He's made of a mixes. The reason why he's potter in this case is because he could have said, I don't know what you're talking about. What you have with my father, I'm not responsible for. So he could have just said, this is not, this is not in my responsibility. But instead he admitted to 50. He's just returning a lost article to me. The din is that if Marshall finds a wallet, has my license, has $1,000 cash in it, and he returns it to me, and I say, Marshall, it had 2,000. And he says it only had 1,000, he doesn't have to swear. Because if we'll make him swear, he'll say, I'm not returning the wallet. What I need headaches for? I need to have to hold the Sefer Torah and swear? I just won't return the wallet. So in order that shouldn't happen, we don't make a person that returns an article swear. Now, Manali biyadcha. Here I tell Marshall, you owe me 100. Amaloi hain. He says, yup. Lamacher amaloi teneoli. The next day I say, give it to me. Marshall says, no sativlach. I gave it to you already last night. Now, he didn't have to give it to me with witnesses, so he's believed to say he gave it to me last night, and therefore potter. If, however, he says after saying, yes, I have 100, then he says tomorrow, Ein lach biyadi, I don't have anything of yours, so now he holds a kafir. He's proved to be a liar. Because I asked him yesterday, you have 100. And he said yes. Then today he says, I don't have anything of yours. Then he's a liar, and then he's chay. Madali biyadcha. Now, if I say to Marshall, you owe me 100. Amalei hain. He says yes. Now, I know what Marshall is, a very slippery, I won't use any metaphors, but you got the idea, right? So I say to Marshall, you owe me 100. He says yes. So then I specify, al titneu li ela be'edim. Don't give it back to me except in front of witnesses. L'macha, the next day, amalei titneu li, I tell him, give it to me. He says, nesativ lach, I gave it to you last night, but he doesn't have witnesses. Chayiv. Why? He has to give it to me with witnesses. I was strategic. I have to know how to deal with people like Marshall. Litra zov yeshli biyadcha. Now in this case, where I tell him that a bullion of gold, so actually it's a fixed amount of bullion. It's a bullion the weight of a litra. A bullion of gold you have on mine. So Marshall says, Ein l'cha biyadi el a litra kesef. I only have a bullion of silver. Now there, it's moed b'miktas, but it's not meminataynu. One is a bullion of gold, one is a bullion of silver. Potter. Because it's not a partial admission from the same thing. However, dinar zav yeshli biyadcha. A coin of gold I have by you. So he answers, Ein l'cha biyadi el a dinar kesef. We only have a coin of silver, or utresis, or pundis, or pruta. Now these are different coins. Chayiv. Because here it's all meminataina, because it's all coins. Shakol min matbea achasi, because it's all currency. So that's considered a moed b'miktzas of meminataina. Now, I tell Marshall, kur tfuah li biyadcha. You have a kur that's 30 sa of grain of mine. He says, Ein l'cha biyadi el a lesech kidney. A lesech is half a kur, 15 sa. I said a kur of wheat, and he says I only have a half a kur of legumes, potter, because legumes are not wheat, so it's not meminatayna. However, if I say to Marshall, kur peiris li biyadcha, you have a kur of fruit, and he says, Ein l'cha biyadi ala lesser kidneys, I only have a half a kur of legumes. Legumes is a type of fruit, then chayiv, because that's moed b'miktzas. If I demand wheat, a mun of wheat, and he admits to a half a mun of barley, potter, because that's not me'inatayna. Rabbi Gamliel b'chai. Rabbi Gamliel disagrees on the whole idea. Rabbi Gamliel says as long as you're moed b'miktzas, it doesn't have to be me'inatayna. Rabbi Gamliel disagrees. Now here we have the famous Mishnayos from Ksuvas. I tell Marshall that he owes me 100 barrels of oil. So that's the oil and the barrels. And he admits to the barrels, but not to the oil. He says, I owe you 100 empty barrels. Admin says, well, since the claim was for 100 barrels and 100 barrelfuls of oil, and Marshall admits to the 100 barrels, he's made of a mixas ataina. Hoya v'hoida like mixas mimin ataina yeshava. The Chacham say no. There were two claims, 100 barrels and 100 barrelfuls of oil. He denied the full amount of the 100 barrels, and he didn't admit to anything of the oil. So he's not made of a mixas. The admission is not of the claim. The claim was for 100 barrels and 100 barrelfuls of oil. The admission for the 100 barrels is not made of a mixas. He's admitting to the whole 100 barrels, and he's admitting to none of the oil. Rabbi Gamliel says, I like the way Admin is viewing it, that it's all one claim, and he's admitting to a portion of the claim. Now, Tanu Kalim V'Karkois, I demand that Marshall owes me real estate and 5 lawnmowers. V'Haida B'Kalim, and he admits to the lawnmowers, the Kafar B'Karkois, and he denies the real estate. Or B'Karkois, he admits to the real estate, the Kafar B'Kalim, and he denies the utensils, Potter. Now, the reason over here is because in the event he admits to the lawnmowers and denies the karka, you don't swear on karka. Ein nishban ala karkos. In the case where he admits to the karka and denies all the lawnmowers, he's not being made of a mixes. Because on karka you don't swear. And on the lawnmowers, on the lawnmowers, he's denying all of it. If he admits to a part of the real estate, he doesn't swear, because again, ein nishban al karkais pater. B'mixas hakelim, but if he admits to some of the lawnmowers, then he has to swear. And once he has to swear, then he has to swear about the real estate too, because chayiv, he has to swear even about the real estate. Shanechosim she'ein lehem achrayis, property that is movable, that is therefore not considered responsible. Zoikikin as hanechosim she'esh lehem achrayis drags the karka lishav aleim. So in a case where I say, Marshall, you owe me 5 lawnmowers and real estate, and he says, I admit to owing you 3 lawnmowers, so he's made of a mixes on the lawnmowers, so he has to swear about the lawnmowers, and once he has to swear about the lawnmowers, he has to swear about the karka also. Finally, ein nishban al tainas cheresh v'kot. You do not swear about the claim of a deaf mute, an imbecile, or a minor, because they're not considered balei das. Ve'ein mashbian as a cut, nor do we impose an oath on a child. Aval nishban l'katan u'lehektish. When we want to take property from a child or from hektish, then we have to swear before taking property from the child or from hektish. Now, says the Gemara, here we want to know, do we use Hashem's name by this Shavuot? So, heichi mashbi'in onlei. When Marshall is made of a mixes, I ask 100, he admits to 50. So when we make him swear, so Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav Mashpi'in Oisai B'Shvua Ha'amura B'Torah. We oppose upon him the shvua that it says in the Torah by Avram Avinu. The Chsiv, Avram told Eliezer, "V'ashpi'acha b'Hashem Elikei Hashemayim." I will put you to an oath by the God of the heavens. So you have to swear with Hashem's name. Says Gemara Malay Ravinu Ravashi that you have to swear by the ineffable name and not by a substitute like Racham and Chanun. Amalei Ravinu Ravashi command Kirab Chanina Baridi Amar Bo'inon Shem HaMiyuchid that you need the ineffable name. Says Gemara, no. Amalei Afilu Temer Rabbanan the Imrei Bikinui who say that by Shavuos Daf it could be with substitute. What we're learning out from Avram is not that you need the ineffable name, but just like by Eliezer, where Avram told Eliezer to hold on to his milah, to Avram's milah, that's called the Kitas Chayfetz. So here too, you have to hold the Sefer Torah. Afilu Temer Rabbanan Dimrei Bekinoi, v'nafkamina that we learn it out from Eliezer, that Sarach Latfusei Chefza B'Yedei. You have to hold something Kaddish in the hand. So over here, you have to hold the Sefer Torah. Ukidarava, Damarava Hai Daina, the Ashba B'Hashem Elikei Shemayim, a dayan, a judge, that makes him swear by the name of Hashem, the God of heaven, but doesn't have him hold the Sefer Torah. Nasa Kamisha Torah B'Dvar Mishnah. It's as if he made an error in an open Mishnah, and the judgment is reversed. The judgment is reversed. Now, what about if he didn't use the Sefer Torah? What about if he used tefillin? Amra Papa, Haidana Daino da Ashpa b'tefillin. That's not enough. It's not a Torah scroll. Nasa Kamisha Torah b'Dvar Mishnah b'Chayzer. However, the halacha is not like Reb Papa. The Hilchos Kavosei Derava that you have to be knocked at a chayfetz biyadei. However, the less Hilchos Kavosei Derava Papa, Hilchos Kavosei Derava dahaloi knocked at chayfetz biyadei. If he just swore Elikei Hashemayim, but he didn't hold anything, the din is reversed. But the less Hilchos Kavosei Derava Papa, da knocked at chayfetz biyadei. If he made it with tefillin, that's not good. That's good enough. Says the Gemara, Shvua Mu'umad. The shvua has to be administered while the defendant is standing, but Talmid Chacham miyushav. The Talmid Chacham can sit. Shvua b'Sefer Torah. The shvua needs a Sefer Torah. Talmid Chacham l'chatchila b'tefillin. The Talmid Chacham, who we trust more, could even do it holding tefillin. Rabbi said we're going to stop over here now. A big job. It's already 10:05. Wow, big night. And we want to thank all of you for coming and staying with us, and wish you a wonderful evening.